Okay, this is going to be the second of two videos about how to make different text technologies. In this one, we're going to be making a medieval manuscript quire. That's Quire, or you may also hear of it referred to as a booklet. We may or may not get a visit from my meddling scribe, who is currently in the hallway playing with paper clips. So for this, you're going to need a piece of paper. You want it to be more or less this shape. The weirder the shape, the harder it gets to fold, FYI. And you're also going to need a writing utensil. A ruler helps if you're going to be like super fancy. And you're going to need some kind of binding material. That can be a twisty tie or a paper clip. Or if you're super fancy or textilely inclined, you can have a needle and thread. There it is, needle and thread. See, needle and thread. Oh, you're also going to want a pair of scissors for this one. So I am working with my my graph paper. Just FYI, it's been marked on one side, so we're gonna call this the hair side. Right, it's got my finer grain of graph, and then this side, we'll call it the flesh side. So this is the side that the like muscle and fat got scraped off of, and this was the outside where the hair grew out of. My toddler has helpfully marked that so that we can tell the difference. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do in making our quire, we're going to take this and we're going to fold it in half, the hamburger way. If you go the hot dog way, you can, but you'll see pretty quickly how that ends up getting kind of weird. When you make a booklet, things kind of don't follow the normal reading logic. So this, once it's folded in half, this is called a bifolium. Bi meaning two, folio meaning like leaf. I'm going to pause and find out what the commotion is. Oh, okay. Crisis averted. So we have a bifolium, bi meaning two, folia meaning leaf. And so you have two leaves, which actually makes 4 pages, right? This would be page 1. This would be page 2. This is page 3. And this is page 4. For very big books, you can use an entire calfskin to make one bifolium, and then they're sewn together along their bindings, along the spine of each booklet, and they make a massive, massive book. Most folks, though, can't afford to waste that many animals on their books, and so we're going to fold this again. This is going to make a quarto because it makes 4 leaves. It's actually pretty logical. After the quarto, until you get to printing, you don't really use a specialized terminology for this. People argue over what the right terms are, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what we have now is a smaller booklet, and it has 4 leaves or 8 pages, right? And so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Oh, here's my assistant.
No, she isn't. We have a dirty diaper.
Oh, here's my assistant that needs clean pants. Can you say bye-bye?
Tell him bye-bye.
Say bye-bye. Yes, like living proof that work and childcare are not possible without help. All right, so here we have our 4. If you want to make this size of booklet, go for it. That's fine. What was typical for a large piece of parchment to then be folded down into is an 8-leaf booklet, or a quire, a quattrocentro as they're also called, which would require 1 more half fold, like so. Oop, that was kind of messy. I'm gonna have to trim that and fix it. You can see because my graph lines aren't nice and formed. Uh-oh. There we go. All right, well that improved it, but it's not perfect. Okay, so now I have a booklet. Before we do anything else with this booklet, I'm going to number the pages, and I'd like for you to do the same, just so that you can see what happens when we open this up. So I'm going to take a pen here, and I'm going to number them real big. You don't have to if you want to use this booklet for your project, or you can and do it more discreetly, whatever. So I'm going to number nice and big and as in the middle as I can. 2, 3. I'm going to lose, this is going to run out of ink on me. 4, and I want to make sure that I keep them upright so that I can tell when I start copying which way to make my copy. So that's 6, that's 7, 8 and 9 are the best because they're right here in the middle. 8, 9, and then we get to the hard part, which is 10. It's gonna be here. 10 and 11 and 12 isn't too bad. And I'll do 13. 14 and 15 are a pain though. So that's 14, 15, and 16. Okay. So that was a little bit of an ordeal, but here we have it, right? So what I'd like for you to do once you have your pages numbered is unfold this piece of paper and look. So let's see. I should have made my 1 more distinguishable, which way is up and which is down. So I'm going to fix that right now. I'm going to throw things. All right. There we go. Voila. 1. And when I unfold, here's what I see. Right? So I have 1 and 16 are right next to each other. 4 and 13. And then the other side, the upside down, right? And then it's all over the place. So what this means is if you were copying in a scriptorium, you could not just take this sheet of paper and start from the beginning of your text and then copy straight through, right? You're not going to copy here and then turn it over and copy here because it has to dry. So you actually have to know exactly what goes on every page before you start copying. And so you'll sit down and you'll copy and you'll do the 40 lines or whatever that fit per page, and you'll take your example text and you'll say, I know I need 40 lines per page. And so you'll mark out your example text and you'll be like, this is page 1 and this is page 2 and this is page 3. And then you'll take your sheet and you will copy so left to right. So you'll copy first, you'll copy page 4 and then 13 and then 16 and then 1. And then you will turn it over and you will copy 8 and 9 and 12 and 5. And then you will hang it over your desk to dry, right? Because that ink is chemically bonding with your parchment page. And when it's dry, you will then flip it over and copy the other side with 6, 11, 10, and 7 to 15, 14, and 3, right? That is how you're going to copy this quire. So you have to actually know what's going on every single page. Difficult. This is, like I said in lecture, a highly skilled endeavor. Bookmaking is not simple, and it's not just about writing. So the last thing that you need to do in order to make your your little folded sheet into an actual booklet is you have to sew it, or make it permanent. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm going to use my needle, but you can use any of the apparatuses that you have, but the needle is going to be like the sharpest thing I have to puncture through my seam at the spine of the booklet. So hang on, let me just going to make a nice knot. I've got this doubled over. It's like 4 wide, and mostly just because I want you to be able to see it and because it's embroidery thread. All right, so I am going to use this needle to puncture 2 holes in here. Now, if this were a real book, we would probably need at least 2 sets of 2 holes, but I'm going to do one sewing just to show you kind of how it works. So I'm going to put my needle right here in the crease. Oh yeah, that's so much easier. See, I never bring a needle to class. It's always a paper clip. So being at home, I suddenly had access to technology resources. And then I'm going to make a second hole. So this one was down, whoopsie doopsie. This one was down here, can you see that? And then I'm going to do one at the top, roughly the same distance from the edge. There we go. And now I have my 2 puncture holes. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is finish this with sewing, but I am going to give you variations. So you can use whatever you have at your disposal. So if you've got a small paper clip, that's what I like. I like to use the small ones because the big ones end up unfolding to be too long for this size of paper. So I like to get it there we go, sort of unfolded so it makes a nice little U. And then we're just going to use it as like a meta staple, like a giant staple. And I do not have my holes at exactly the right place, so I'm going to just change. I'm going to change where this folds. There we go. All right. And then from the inside, I'm going to poke my paper clip. Whoops. Well, that's fun and different. My paper started stripping the color from the paper clip. All right, well, I guess that's what it's going to do then. There it goes. All right, and I'm going to do the same for the other side. So now I have, right, see what I'm saying? Like meta staple. Can I help you? Okay, I'll be right out. I'm almost done. Haha, suckers, I'm eating In-N-Out for lunch. Sorry, that was rude. Okay, here we go. So here's my paper clip. Got all kinds of messy. So it's sticking out here like this, and I'm just gonna fold them down, and it's gonna make like a giant staple. You could use an actual stapler for this. That would work as well. All right, and I ripped it, putting my paper clip in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fold up another sample booklet to show you alternatives. So we will use this scratch paper that lives here on my desk for the benefit of my toddler, who at the end of every day decides that she has to come in and use my pens to color with. So, all right, I've got my booklet, and I'm just going to go ahead and poke my holes again. Gosh, that's so much easier than using a paper clip. All right, and now I'm going to use my twisty tie. All right. Ooh, I'm not going to use my twisty tie like that. So I might have to poke a little extra generously and use the scissors to kind of widen that hole. Not recommended if you're not terribly coordinated or accident prone. It's terrifying. Here comes the next one. Yes, there are probably better tools for this job. No, I'm not going to go get them. All right, but the point here is that you can make it work with what you have. So I'm going to do the same thing. The ends of the twisty tie go through to the outside, and then on the inside you see your stitch, essentially, is what we're looking at here. And then I don't think this twisty tie is going to reach to be able to like twist it, so we're just going to have to also use that as a staple, right, like that. And just in case you're curious, if you can fit it in your stapler, you can staple at the seam as well, right? You can staple that too. That'll work just fine. So that's 2 options. Let's make booklet 3, and this will be our last booklet. There we go. Can you tell that I have done this so many more times than I can count? And I make booklets, and then my desk drawer in my campus office is like filled with little booklets that I've made as demos, and I, like, for whatever reason, can't bring myself to throw them out, which is ridiculous, because I just make new ones every time, because the making part is the point. Okay, so I've got my holes poked in it, but this time around, I am going to take my needle from the outside through the pre-poked hole, so that the knot, which is not big enough, so that the knot stays on the outside. And I'm gonna loop this through a few times to make my knot a little bit more robust. All right, let's see. Hopefully it'll stay this time. All right, so there it is. Poke it through my other hole, like so. So this is one big seam stitch. Now, if we were doing a real manuscript, you would do at least 2 of these little bracket stitches, to do one at the top and one at the bottom. And that might be enough for your booklet depending on how big it is. If it's much taller than about 8 inches or the size of a modern paperback, you might do 3. But the funny thing is that you can definitely see this sewing in the seams of the booklets when you look at medieval books, which I find highly entertaining. But it's also helpful if you are a media detective and you're trying to figure out how a book was put together. You can use that information to learn more about how the book was originally produced and how it really came to be in the way that it is. All right, now I have to figure out how to use what I've got to make a knot. So you're gonna tie the 2 ends of your thread that are on the outside of your booklet. You're going to tie those together if you can. Yes, this is going to be messy, and yes, there was a special kind of knot for doing this, but we're not going to worry about that right now. What we're going to do is we're going to cut threads in order to extract ourselves from this mess. Oh my goodness. Tying the knot really went off the rails here. Okay. I bet lots of people say that. Anyway. Okay. There we go. So here it is. It's not the prettiest stitch I've ever done, but it works, and it keeps our book together. And I think I might have just cut my knot. Anyhow, so there it is, right? There's our little packet stitch. And then the last step for all of these is trimming. Now you want to be careful when you copy. You want to be able to outline exactly where you want your text to go. So you want to know how much you're going to have to trim off the edges. So if you copy right out to the edge, then you're going to be trimming edges like this. So you trim the one of your short ends of the book, and you trim your long edge, your unbound long edge, like so. but only one of these short ends will have folds. Oh, I didn't quite get this fold. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. So now we have our booklet. 1, 2, 3. See, I didn't quite get that fold trimmed. You will see this in books, right? Which tells you that nobody ever read this particular copy because nobody ever realized that it didn't get trimmed all the way. Now, there we go. Now that's trimmed. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, right? 8, 9. You can see our seam. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, all trimmed up. Now, sometimes when a book is rebound, they'll take the bindings off and they'll detach the way that these booklets are sewn together. So let's trim our booklets. And I'm getting ahead of myself. Like so. And like so. Oh, that was a messy one. That happens. You see that. And where's my staple? Okay, I want to make sure I don't cut my staple. Like so. And like so. All right, so what will happen is we'll take this booklet and we'll line it up with this booklet and line it up with this booklet, and voila, we now have a book. And then we will sew these 3 spines of the booklet together. That's a much more complicated sewing technique. You usually use a frame and you have to create a very special kind of knot. It's in-depth and it's super cool. But what you'll see is, so if some folks decide to unbind it because the bindings wear out and they need rebound in order to continue to be preserved, and what they'll do is when they rebind it, the edges won't line up perfectly. And so the next thing that will happen is when they bind it, they will trim it again. And over time, these edges just start creeping farther and farther in. That was a really ugly trim. And yeah, sometimes that happens and you're like, man, that was a shit rebinding job, guys. I could have used the paper cutter, but then you wouldn't have been able to see what I'm doing. Right. And then what happens is, like, then you start to have margins get cut off and go missing. And so you want to be mindful of where you have copied in your book or your booklet, so you don't trim off any of the work that you've done, because that definitely is a thing that happens. And that's it. That's our demo of how to make a booklet. So the thing I'd like you to do, you just have to make one. It doesn't matter how many pages it is. It's kind of boring if it's a bifolium, but you know, if you must, fasten it in some way, trim it, and have something on the inside, right? You can give it a cover and that will make it a codex, or you can leave it as a booklet, and that's it. That's all there is to it.